Panzerfaust. Since Dark Throne released their album mid-90s with the same name, there has been quite a few bands with a similar title. However, this one is from Canada and it's playing black metal, the modern style. This is actually part 2 of the chapters called The Sons of Perdition. The second one is called Render Unto Eden. The first one was released in 2019 and it already showed, or more like played, quite a modern black metal with some similarities to bands such as Behemoth and the like. Not so much traditional second wave black metal if you ask me, but anyway. And it was dividing people's opinions, what I could gather at least. That is, kind of some people were praising and some people not so much. I was personally a little bit disappointed because to me it seemed like the band was way too much on places. Even some points it felt like this could be a black metal release by Slipknot. So it should really tell you how I felt about it. I mean, I don't have anything against Slipknot as such, but there is one thing for a band to play black metal and being a black metal band, and then there's one thing if a non-black metal band doing the same. Now, more than anything, I guess this kind of a modern approach to the band's black metal tells a lot about how people react to any given state or phase of black metal. Some do like this so-called modern or third wave black metal. Some would even say post-black. But I think that's just, in my opinion, a little bit too much to say about Panzerfaust. I don't think it's post-black. It is black metal, but with a modern style, modern touch, if you will. Some would say there's something kind of Icelandic feeling with the music. And when I was listening to the second one, it really didn't sound so much like Behemoth and the stuff, but more like other Polish band, and that is one of the bigger black metal bands from Poland, Mgla. Also, what I could think of when I was listening to this one is maybe because of the recent album Limbo, reminded me of the Portuguese band Gaerea. Now we take a look at the similar artists tab. It seems like I am not totally lost with my idea because after all these both bands are mentioned here. However, in the top place of similar artists tab voted by the people is Greek's Machine, which then again just happens to be Mwa's side project. Anyway, let's talk about the second album, which is here, 44 minutes, 5 tracks. So what you can really judge by that is very lengthy tracks. And this is definitely more atmosphere-driven black metal versus being riff-driven. So this is basically very little to do with kind of a 1980s or early 90s black metal. That is the first wave, and the second wave, in case you just happen to be a newer fan of the genre. But that doesn't really mean that there are no similarities or connections between these different eras, because obviously Panzerfaust is a lot nodding to what seems to be usually called kind of a traditional black metal. I mean, obviously you have the certain kind of a production, which is not exactly the mainstream polished stuff, but not too raw. So it's kind of like in the middle, the kind of a middle road, if you will. Also, when it comes to the vocals, it's a little bit more diverse than your typical black metal. It's not just that raspy, shrieky stuff, but they are kind of like whispery style. Not like this, but more like somewhat semi-whispering, if you will. Also, there are a little bit of a growliness, but also this kind of a raspiness. So it's more like different approaches are being tried, and to be honest, I'm not too comfortable with that. For some people, it might be totally the next big thing, or at least some way to separate from the rest. But in my opinion, it feels more like a gimmick rather than anything else. I'm not saying it's bad, but it doesn't feel, in my opinion, to click too much. It's more like way better it would be if it was just traditional black metal raspiness. You know, the kind of a shrieky, even screamy style. Now it's more like, old tricks in new clothes, so to speak, because it doesn't really have the power of kind of a traditional death metal growliness, but more weaker parts. It's not really whispering, but something like in between their whispers and raspy growly stuff. So it's more like, yeah, I get the band is trying to do something different, but it doesn't really work for me. Not too well. And when it comes to the songwriting, that is my number one problem with the album, separating it from the real good ones. Because to be honest, when I focus on the single riffs on this album, I really get more like frustrated, because a lot of these riffs are, to be honest with it, very, very forgettable. Sometimes they're more like creating certain kind of vibrations versus like, let's kill with this riff. There are a lot of riffs, I mean a bunch of riffs, or more like guitar parts, we don't really sound like, okay, now we're doing metal, but more like experimenting with some kind of a post-metal feeling. So it's very close to being kind of a post-black. And it's definitely more on the atmosphere side, where Panzerfaust is doing their stuff really, really well. That combined with the drummer work, which is actually filled with nice ideas, nuances and whatever, I think that's very close to what Mgla is doing. So I get that Greek's Machine and Mgla and even Gaerea being on the list of similar artists. However, I really don't feel the Marduk connection here. I mean, if you separate the fact that these are both operating around war, World War especially. But when it comes to music, this is definitely closer to what Mgla is doing, creating this immense atmosphere, which totally divides people into two categories. There are lots of people who are big fans of Mgla. I like them a lot as well. And then there is this other part of people who are like, I don't get where the hype is coming from. Why people even like this band? They don't have cool riffs, and their songs are just like a mass of gear sounding, well, you know, resonating, if you will. But I don't know, there's something that Panzerfaust does better this time versus the chapter 1 in these Sons of Perdition things. So while I don't consider this real good album, I think it has quite a lot of nice ideas, and the overall execution with the strong atmosphere is definitely something interesting, worthwhile at least. So I think this is an album worth taking a look and a listen, but I wouldn't go praising too much about it. So in case you're wondering what I really think about the album, I would say it's rather good. It's definitely decent, but it's not mind-blowing. Then again, if you just happen to be a major Mgla fan, who knows, maybe this could be your album of the year. Go and figure out, and in case you like it, go for the Gaerea album as well. So here it is, Panzerfaust, The Sons of Perdition, Chapter 2, Render Unto Eden. Take a look, take a listen, it's provided in the description box. That is, those links you can pretty much check out from the Bandcamp. See ya, and until next review, signing off.